There's a truth that very few men are ready to hear. Women are not attracted to what you say. They're drawn to what you radiate without words. It's not about your looks, your clothes, or your rehearsed gestures. It's about the silent power that emanates from you when you know exactly who you are, when you don't beg for validation, and when you hold full command over your emotions. Most men will never understand this because they live enslaved to approval, addicted to being accepted. But those who awaken, they discover something that transforms their entire inner world. My name is Melkor Huamán, and here on Invisible Power, I reveal the psychology that few dare to explore, the kind that moves in the shadows of the human mind, where attraction, desire, and power are not accidents, but the results of mental precision. Everything begins when you understand that female attraction isn't a romantic mystery. It's a psychological and biological reaction deeply hardwired into the brain. Every woman, consciously or not, responds to specific behavioral patterns that repeat endlessly. Robert Cialdini explained this perfectly in his theory of influence. Power is never imposed. It's perceived. When a man acts out of need, he projects weakness. But when he acts from abundance, when he doesn't chase, but chooses, the female brain detects it as strength, dominance, and safety. The paradox is that most men confuse being nice with being desirable, and that confusion destroys their magnetism. Dale Carnegie taught that every human being craves to feel important. Women are no exception. The man who can awaken that emotion in others without losing his center, that man understands the psychology of attraction. Edward Bernays, the father of modern manipulation, proved that emotion, not logic, drives all decisions. That's why the most powerful messages don't sell products. They sell feelings, identity, and status. Attraction works exactly the same way. It's not about reason. It's about the emotion your presence awakens. Niccolo Machiavelli said that those who control perception control destiny. Women don't fall for who you are objectively. They fall for what you symbolize. What matters isn't your reality, but the story you create about yourself. The man who keeps mystery alive, who never reveals everything, who keeps part of himself reserved, communicates value. Sun Tzu would call this the art of war without battle, winning without proving. When a woman can't fully read a man, curiosity turns into attraction. And when curiosity fuses with desire, it becomes obsession. Dark psychology is not evil. It's awareness, a deep understanding of the invisible mechanisms that shape human behavior. Robert D. Hare, one of the leading experts on psychopathy, described the most charismatic personalities as masters of emotional reading. Not because they lack empathy, but because they observe emotion from the outside, like a scientist watching a reaction. Kevin Dutton expanded this idea. Dark charm doesn't come from chaos, but it comes from control. The man who understands his own darkness can channel it into confidence, presence, and charisma. Suppression, on the other hand, turns power into fear. Women detect insecurity like a radar. They don't do it consciously. They feel it. When a man hesitates, his body language shifts. His shoulders close, his gaze flickers, his voice trembles. That subtle change communicates everything. Paul Ekman proved that micro-expressions reveal truth even when words lie. The human brain reads these cues instinctively. You can claim confidence, but if your body doesn't agree, your message collapses. Real confidence isn't performed, it's built. Philip Zimbardo demonstrated through his Stanford prison experiment that when a person embraces a role with conviction, the mind adapts and turns it into identity. If you act powerful but don't believe it, your subconscious will betray you. But when you build power from within, through mental discipline and emotional control, it manifests effortlessly. Women feel that authenticity like an invisible current. Stephen Hassan explained that mental control begins not with others, but with yourself. Self-mastery is the foundation of magnetism. Aldous Huxley saw it clearly long before modern psychology. Real control is not physical, it's psychological. Society has tamed men to repress their natural instincts, their drive to lead, to dominate their environment, to assert direction. They are taught to please, not to lead, to seek approval, not respect. But the man who breaks that mental conditioning becomes an enigma to women, because he represents what most men have lost: freedom. And freedom is the most powerful psychological aphrodisiac that exists. Once you begin to see these dynamics, you never see the world the same way again. Every glance, every conversation, every interaction becomes a subtle exchange of energy and control. You start noticing who sets the frame. In every social exchange, there's a psychological leader and an emotional follower. If you're not leading, you're being led. Toxic people, especially manipulators, understand this principle perfectly. Robert Greene called it the game of power. Whoever defines the narrative controls perception. In attraction, most men fail because they surrender their power too early. The man who rushes to please, who over-explains, who seeks approval, kills the very mystery that creates desire. In contrast, the man who observes calmly, who doesn't need to fill silence, who remains grounded, communicates strength. In dark psychology, this is called stimulus control, the ability to resist the urge to react. B.F. Skinner demonstrated that the most powerful rewards are not constant, but intermittent. Uncertainty fuels attraction. Daniel Kahneman revealed that the human mind values effort. What is harder to attain is perceived as more valuable. If a woman feels she must earn your emotional attention, her brain increases its investment. But if you offer yourself too easily, her mind switches off. This isn't manipulation, it's nature. Dark psychology doesn't create these laws. It observes them. Nature doesn't follow morality, it follows efficiency. Many men fail because they ignore this truth. They believe love and attraction exist outside the realm of power. But every relationship is a negotiation of energy, attention, and control. The difference between a manipulator and a wise man is intention. One seeks domination out of insecurity. The other seeks understanding for freedom. Knowledge doesn't make you manipulative, it makes you aware. When you realize that female attraction is not a mystery, but an emotional equation, you start playing a completely different game. You stop trying to be desired. You become someone who creates desire simply by existing. That's the essence of magnetism. You don't seduce with words, you seduce with presence. Women don't fall in love with what you say. They fall for what you represent. Power, stability, confidence, and rarity. Invisible power isn't just a channel. It's a space for men who refuse to stay naive. I won't teach you how to manipulate. I'll teach you how to master yourself. Because self-mastery is the first step to social mastery. If you don't control your emotions, someone else will. But when you remain calm, conscious, and centered in the middle of chaos, power gravitates toward you naturally. And women can feel that energy before you say a single word. Dark psychology is a mirror. It doesn't make you into something new. It shows you what you've always been, what you've suppressed. When you rise above the game, you stop being a piece and become the player. Attraction stops being chance and becomes strategy. A strategy not to conquer others, but to conquer yourself. There is a type of person who can walk into a room and make you feel both fascinated and uneasy at the same time. They have a way of drawing your attention, of pulling you into their orbit, of making you question your own perception. They are not always loud nor obviously dominant. Sometimes they are calm, gentle even, but beneath that calm lies a refined understanding of human behavior. These are the toxic personalities that operate with psychological precision. They don't overpower you physically. They infiltrate you mentally. The first thing you must understand is this: not all toxicity looks dangerous. Many of the most manipulative individuals appear kind, empathetic, even humble. Robert Greene explained that power is most effective when it hides behind virtue. The most dangerous manipulator is not the one who threatens you. It's the one who makes you feel safe. The one who earns your trust, only to use it as leverage later. That is why awareness is your first defense. A toxic person studies you, just as a strategist studies the battlefield. They identify your insecurities, your emotional triggers, your desires. Once they find them, they begin to weave their web. They may flatter you, make you feel seen, special, understood. This is not affection, it's calibration. Edward Bernays would call it emotional conditioning. They create an association between their presence and your feeling of importance. Once that association is strong enough, they begin to shift it, slowly, subtly. The same person who once gave you validation now withholds it, forcing your mind into a loop of uncertainty. This psychological oscillation between reward and withdrawal is not random. It's the same principle B.F. Skinner used in behavioral conditioning. The human brain releases dopamine, not when it receives a reward, but when it anticipates one. By controlling that anticipation, toxic people can make you addicted to their approval. It's not love you feel, it's dependency. Understanding this is crucial if you want to master your own psychology, because the same mechanism that allows others to manipulate you can be used to strengthen your mind. Every time you crave someone's attention, you surrender control. Every time you need validation, you signal weakness. The antidote is emotional independence, the ability to generate your own sense of worth without external confirmation. That is where dark psychology transforms from defense into power. Paul Ekman showed that emotions are contagious. Humans mirror the emotional states of those around them, even unconsciously. Toxic people use this to project chaos into your emotional field. They remain calm while provoking you. They deny what you see, twist your words, or act offended when confronted. This creates confusion, self-doubt, and guilt, the holy trinity of manipulation. Once you doubt your perception, you begin to rely on theirs. That's how control is established, not through strength, but through confusion. George K. Simon called this covert aggression. It's not the aggression you can see, it's the aggression that hides behind smiles, jokes, or tears. It's when someone invalidates your emotions subtly, using phrases like "you're overreacting" or "I was just joking." Over time, these micro-cuts erode your confidence. The manipulator becomes the reference point of what is real, and you lose touch with your intuition. That's the essence of psychological control. So how do you identify them before they infiltrate your mind? Observe patterns, not moments. A toxic person's behavior is consistent in its inconsistency. Kind one day, distant the next. Supportive in public, dismissive in private. They test boundaries gradually, each time a little further, to see how far they can go without resistance. This is what Philip Zimbardo referred to when describing the process of moral erosion, small steps that eventually normalize abuse. Every manipulator relies on 4 principles of dark influence. First, isolation. They weaken your external references, your friends, your routines, your beliefs, until your emotional world revolves around them. Second, gaslighting. They rewrite your reality by denying events, changing stories, or questioning your memory. The goal is to make you depend on their version of truth. Third, intermittent reinforcement. They alternate affection and neglect to destabilize your emotional balance. And fourth, projection. They accuse you of the very behaviors they commit, to confuse you, to defend their image, and to keep you distracted. When you understand these tactics, you stop reacting emotionally. You begin to watch the game from above, detached, analytical, like Sun Tzu observing the enemy's formation. He said, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Awareness turns chaos into strategy." Let me give you a scenario. Imagine a woman you're dating begins to criticize you subtly, not directly, but with sarcasm, with backhanded compliments. "You're so confident for someone who doesn't have much time to work out," she says with a smile. Most men laugh it off, not realizing this is a psychological probe. She's testing your emotional threshold. If you react defensively, she knows where your insecurity lies. If you ignore it completely, she may test again. But if you respond calmly, assertively, without emotion, "I'm comfortable with who I am," the test ends. You've communicated psychological immunity. The same principle applies in social and professional environments. Toxic colleagues or leaders manipulate through framing, controlling how others interpret reality. Robert Cialdini described this as the principle of authority. People tend to trust the perception of competence over actual truth. That's why manipulators invest heavily in image. They understand that confidence often outweighs evidence. If you want to neutralize that power, you must master presence. Presence is the energy of someone who doesn't seek approval. It's the subtle yet powerful aura of internal certainty. It makes toxic people uncomfortable because they can't destabilize it. When you project calmness, you disarm aggression. When you remain silent under pressure, you force others to reveal themselves. Daniel Kahneman would call this cognitive asymmetry. Your control forces their impulsivity to surface. Toxic individuals thrive in emotional reactivity. They need you to respond, to defend, to explain. The moment you do, you're already playing by their rules. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote that power belongs to those who can anticipate the moves of others while remaining unpredictable themselves. So cultivate stillness. Let others reveal their motives through their attempts to manipulate yours. Now, there is a misconception that dark psychology is inherently destructive. That's not true. Kevin Dutton and Stephen Hassan both emphasize that awareness of manipulation doesn't make you immoral. It makes you resistant. Ethical application of dark psychology is about defense, control, and influence without deception. It's about using the same principles manipulators use, but to maintain clarity, not to exploit. Imagine you are negotiating a deal, a relationship, or a boundary. The toxic person will always aim to control the frame, what is being discussed and what isn't. You counter this not by confrontation, but by reframing. You redirect focus calmly and logically, refusing emotional hooks. I understand what you're saying, but here's what matters. This reasserts your control over the narrative. Robert Hare once said that psychopaths lack anxiety, and that's their secret weapon. When you master your own anxiety, you neutralize theirs. They lose their grip. Because manipulation depends on emotional contagion, the ability to make you feel what they need you to feel. When you stay grounded, their tactics collapse. Here's a paradox: the same sensitivity that makes you vulnerable to manipulation can also make you powerful. Emotional intelligence, when guided by awareness, becomes a radar for subtle deception. You start reading tone, timing, body language, and micro shifts of energy. You can sense when someone's words and emotions don't align. That's your intuition, sharpened by experience. Paul Ekman's research confirms that trained awareness of micro-expressions increases accuracy in detecting deception to over 90%. Imagine living with that clarity. Dark psychology teaches that every human interaction is an exchange of power. But power doesn't always mean dominance. True power is calm awareness. The manipulator operates through emotional turbulence. The wise man operates through silence. That's why those who master themselves are unshakable, because nothing external can move what's internally centered. Toxic people hate boundaries because boundaries expose their intent. When you say no calmly, they panic. When you stop explaining yourself, they lose control. They rely on guilt to manipulate compliance, but guilt only works on those who doubt their worth. When you value your peace over approval, guilt dissolves. You must also understand that toxicity attracts familiarity. If you've tolerated manipulation before, your subconscious might crave it again, not because you enjoy pain, but because your nervous system confuses chaos with passion. B.F. Skinner's conditioning applies here too. The brain associates emotional intensity with significance. Healing requires rewiring that association. Peace must become your new standard of excitement. Philip Zimbardo described the transformation of ordinary people under corrupt systems. He showed that context can turn anyone into a manipulator or a victim. That's why awareness must be daily. No one is immune to corruption, not even you. The line between defense and control is razor thin. The difference lies in intention. When you start applying these principles, the world around you begins to shift. People who thrived on your emotional reactivity will start to pull away. They can no longer feed on your energy. Others will be drawn to your calm authority. You will notice that women respond differently too, because emotional control radiates strength, and strength attracts instinctively. At its core, dark psychology is not about manipulation. It's about understanding human nature without illusions. When you can look into the complexity of behavior, see its mechanics, and still remain grounded, you achieve what philosophers call detachment with awareness. That's where true influence begins. Invisible power exists for this reason, to turn awareness into strength, to help you walk into any room with calm authority, to see through deception, and to command respect without words. The goal isn't to control others, but to ensure that no one ever controls you again. Power is not something you show. It's something you maintain in silence. Most men fail not because they lack intelligence or charm, but because they never learned how to hold their own energy. They give it away too soon, through over-explaining, seeking reassurance, or reacting emotionally. The essence of dark psychology, when applied ethically, is self-command. Once you can direct your own emotions, you can direct any situation. I always tell men this: you cannot influence the world if you cannot influence your own mind. Influence begins internally, in how you think, speak, move, and respond. Every reaction you give away without awareness is a small surrender of power. The manipulators, the toxic people, the emotional vampires. They thrive on these tiny leaks of control. But when you close those leaks, when you stop reacting and start observing, the entire dynamic changes. You become unreadable and therefore unbreakable. Let's begin with a simple but powerful concept: emotional neutrality. This doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being ruled by what you feel. Emotions are signals, not commands. Daniel Kahneman demonstrated how the mind confuses emotional intensity with truth. When we feel something strongly, we assume it must be real. But emotions lie. They exaggerate. The disciplined man observes his feelings as data. He doesn't suppress them, but neither does he act on impulse. Here's how you practice it. Every time someone provokes you, pause before responding. Observe your internal reaction. Is it anger, fear, shame, desire? Identify it, name it silently. The act of naming emotion transfers activity from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain. That single step changes your entire state. Paul Ekman's research proved that awareness interrupts emotional escalation. The person who pauses wins. Once you learn to pause, the next habit is controlled ambiguity. Never reveal your emotional direction too early. When people can't predict your reactions, they lose control of you. This is the foundation of strategic communication. Think of Niccolò Machiavelli's principle. Never reveal the full extent of your intentions. When others must guess your next move, they become invested in your mystery. In attraction, this is powerful. In manipulation defense, it's armor. To cultivate controlled ambiguity, you must learn to speak less, but with more weight. Use silence as a psychological tool. Every silence makes people fill the void with their own projections. Women in particular interpret silence as confidence if it's paired with calm body language. Toxic individuals, however, interpret silence as resistance. It unsettles them. They rely on emotional chaos to dominate. When you don't play, they lose the game. Another principle: selective vulnerability. Many misunderstand this. They believe vulnerability is weakness, but when it's chosen consciously, it becomes strategy. Robert Cialdini called this the principle of reciprocity. When you reveal something small, others feel compelled to open up in return. But the key is choice. Reveal only what strengthens connection without compromising leverage. Let's move to habits that reinforce psychological strength daily. Start every morning with a mental calibration ritual. Before you check your phone, before you speak, take 5 minutes of complete stillness. Visualize your day as a battlefield, not of violence, but of influence. Picture yourself as centered, observing, detached. The moment you claim your inner calm, you're already ahead. The modern world trains men to react from the moment they wake up, to chase validation, to respond instantly, to seek distraction. But silence trains dominance. Sun Tzu said, "In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. The opportunity is clarity." Then throughout the day, apply the rule of observation. Watch people without judgment. Study their body language, tone, and pacing. What do they seek? Approval, attention, control? When you learn to see motivation behind behavior, you stop taking things personally. And when you stop taking things personally, no one can manipulate you. There is also the mirror exercise, one of my personal disciplines. Stand in front of a mirror and hold your gaze for 1 full minute without speaking. You will notice discomfort, restlessness, self-criticism. That's your ego unraveling. The longer you can maintain stillness while facing yourself, the stronger your psychological presence becomes. Charisma is not performance. It's the absence of internal noise. Now many ask, can dark psychology be used to attract women ethically? The answer is yes, if your intention is awareness, not deceit. Remember this, women are attracted to emotional leadership. They are drawn to the man who stays calm when others panic, who remains composed when the world reacts. This doesn't mean arrogance. It means grounded power. The one who leads energy leads attraction. Here's how to apply this practically. When you talk to a woman, never chase rapport. Command it through pace and tone. Slow your speech. Lower your voice. Maintain longer pauses. You are not chasing connection. You are inviting it. You are not seeking approval. You are evaluating compatibility. This subtle shift rewires the power dynamic completely. Robert Greene wrote that the seducer never chases. He attracts by making others step forward. Now let's address manipulation from a defensive standpoint. If someone tries to emotionally corner you, guilt, flattery, provocation, imagine yourself behind a transparent shield. Let their words reach you, but not enter you. Respond only with neutral statements. For example, if someone says, "You've changed. You used to be more caring." Instead of defending yourself, say, "Maybe I've learned to be clearer." This acknowledges their words without surrendering control. Emotional manipulation dies in the presence of clarity. The manipulator feeds on confusion and apology. The moment you stop justifying yourself, you remove their oxygen. Stephen Hassan observed that every form of control relies on limiting information. Toxic people control you by controlling your perspective. To break this, practice information detachment. Don't rush to respond. Delay decisions. Let space enter between action and reaction. The world manipulates through urgency. Now or never, limited time, you'll lose me if you don't decide. But power lives in delay. Every pause increases your leverage. At this midpoint, I want to pause to remind you of something important. If what I've shared so far resonates with you, if you feel that you're ready to take back control of your mind, your emotions, and your life, then subscribe to Invisible Power. Here, I'm not offering fantasy. I'm offering clarity. Together, we will deconstruct human behavior until influence becomes second nature. Now let's continue. One of the most effective habits for mastering influence is pattern interruption. When someone expects a reaction, anger, guilt, submission, and you respond with calm curiosity, their control short circuits. For instance, when attacked verbally, instead of defending yourself, ask, "Why do you feel that way?" It forces the other person to explain their intent, shifting control back to you. Vance Packard described this as disrupting emotional momentum. Once momentum breaks, persuasion loses force. Another critical practice is self-dialogue control. Most manipulation happens internally, in how you talk to yourself after someone influences you. The toxic person's words become your thoughts. You start doubting, replaying, analyzing. To counter this, reframe your self-talk immediately. "That's their perception, not my truth." Repeat until it becomes reflex. Your internal dialogue defines your external power. Aldous Huxley wrote that most men are slaves who think they are free because their minds are conditioned by invisible narratives. The manipulator doesn't need chains, he needs your beliefs. The way out is conscious narrative design. Every morning, tell yourself who you are and what you stand for. Not affirmations, declarations. I am calm. I am deliberate. I am selective. The repetition builds identity, and identity is the ultimate defense. You must also master energy withdrawal. When someone seeks conflict, silence becomes your weapon. Emotional withdrawal is the modern form of psychological warfare. It's how you conserve dominance without confrontation. Sun Tzu advised that the greatest victory is the one achieved without battle. Walking away without explanation is not weakness, it's sovereignty. In attraction, this manifests as controlled distance. When you maintain slight unpredictability, not disappearing but not constantly available, the female brain increases its curiosity. This is intermittent reinforcement used ethically. The goal is not to cause anxiety, but to maintain polarity. Desire thrives on a balance of closeness and mystery. In leadership, this manifests as calm dominance. The leader who speaks last often holds the most authority. Daniel Kahneman and Robert Cialdini both emphasize that authority emerges from perceived certainty, not constant talking. The silent man who chooses his words carefully becomes the gravitational center of any group. To solidify these traits, you must detoxify your environment. Toxic people cannot survive in a space of truth and stillness. Audit your circle. Eliminate those who thrive on gossip, chaos, or pity. Replace them with those who challenge your mind. As Philip Zimbardo warned, evil is not inherent, it's situational. The environment shapes your behavior more than you think. Choose environments that force you to grow. In your daily life, create micro-practices of control. Slow your breathing when emotions rise. Maintain eye contact 2 seconds longer than usual. Lower your tone instead of raising it. Replace apology with acknowledgement. These micro-habits seem small, but they rewire your subconscious communication patterns. Over time, your baseline energy shifts from reactive to dominant. Remember, influence is not noise. It's silence filled with certainty. Manipulators rely on chaos to disorient. Women respond to calmness because it signals protection. The world respects clarity because it's rare. Dark psychology, in its purest form, is the study of unseen power, and unseen power is the most effective kind. When you master these habits, you stop chasing validation. You no longer beg for respect. It begins to follow you. By applying these principles daily, observing without reacting, speaking with precision, maintaining mystery, and protecting your emotional energy, you evolve into what I call a psychologically sovereign man. Not a manipulator, not a victim, but a master of perception, emotion, and influence. And when you reach that point, something extraordinary happens. People begin to change their behavior around you without you saying a word. They feel your stability, your detachment, your quiet strength. You no longer need to prove yourself, because presence has replaced performance. That is the essence of invisible power. There comes a moment in every man's evolution when he realizes that the greatest war he will ever fight is not against others, but against his own mind. The battlefield is silent, invisible, internal. The enemy is not out there. It's the part of you that hesitates, that doubts, that craves validation from those who don't even understand your worth. When you begin to master yourself, something profound happens. You stop chasing power, and power begins to flow toward you. Because true dominance is not about control over others. It's about control over your own impulses, emotions, and energy. The world responds to inner order. A chaotic mind creates chaos in everything it touches, but a centered mind brings gravity. People, opportunities, and respect are drawn to it naturally. Dark psychology at its core was never about deceit. It was about observation, to see the world as it is, not as you were told it should be. When you see without illusion, you start to understand why people act the way they do. Why they lie, manipulate, flatter, betray, or seduce. You stop taking it personally, because you understand the machinery behind it. You stop being a victim of emotion and become a student of cause and effect. That is freedom. Robert Greene once said, "The most dangerous man is the one who observes everything and reveals nothing." Observation is power. Detachment is power. Silence is power. The combination of all three creates the type of presence that unsettles manipulators and attracts the feminine instinct simultaneously. Because women, whether they understand it consciously or not, are drawn to order. To the man who radiates composure amidst noise, clarity amidst confusion, direction amidst doubt. Think about it. In a world that constantly screams for attention, the one who remains still becomes magnetic. The one who listens instead of reacting becomes mysterious. The one who can walk away becomes unforgettable. That is why most men never reach this level, because it requires solitude. It requires stripping away all false layers of personality, all social masks, until only essence remains. Solitude terrifies those who depend on validation to exist. But for the man who has faced himself and survived his own silence, solitude is no longer loneliness, it's power. You must understand something fundamental. Power is not what you do. It's what you are when everything is taken from you. When the noise fades, when admiration disappears, when no one is watching, as what remains? That is your real strength. Aldous Huxley called this the power of self-possession, the state where no external force can alter your peace. Women are not drawn to chaos. They are drawn to the man who can contain chaos, the one who can stand in the storm without flinching, the one who can listen to a challenge without ego, observe an insult without reaction, and walk away without resentment. That level of composure is rare, and rarity is the ultimate magnet. At this stage, the purpose of dark psychology shifts. It stops being a shield and becomes a lens, a way to see truth clearly without emotion clouding it. You begin to notice the micro-expressions of deception, the subtle energy shifts in conversation, the inconsistencies between words and tone. You recognize patterns of control instantly, but rather than fighting them, you simply step aside. You don't need to expose manipulators. You simply become immune to them. This is where Kevin Dutton's concept of functional psychopathy becomes practical, not in cruelty, but in emotional detachment. The ability to remain calm when others panic, to decide rationally under pressure, to think 3 moves ahead while everyone else reacts. When you integrate this level of composure with empathy, you become not just powerful, but untouchable. Philip Zimbardo said that character is revealed when no one is watching. Power tests you when it's silent. Many seek control because they feel powerless, but the truly powerful seek clarity. When you understand your darkness, you no longer fear it. And when you no longer fear it, no one can use it against you. Let me leave you with a truth that took me years to accept. The people who once tried to break you will one day envy your silence. Because silence is the language of strength. When you stop reacting, you become unpredictable. When you stop explaining, you become mysterious. And when you stop chasing, you become the standard. Invisible power is not about teaching men to manipulate. It's about teaching men to see, to recognize patterns of control in society, relationships, and themselves, and to rise above them. I am not here to give you comfort. I am here to give you clarity. Because clarity is the foundation of freedom. The challenge I leave you with is simple but not easy. Spend one day observing your reactions. Every time you feel the impulse to defend, to prove, to seek, pause. Ask yourself, what would happen if I did nothing? You'll be surprised how often the world bends toward those who can wait. The man who can delay gratification, who can master silence, who can maintain calm under emotional fire, that man becomes a force of nature. He no longer chases influence, he embodies it. So I ask you now, and answer this honestly to yourself, are you the man who reacts to the world, or the man the world reacts to? Because the difference between the two defines your destiny.